Expensive. Joining me now by phone is Republican Senator from the state of Florida, Marco Rubio. Senator Rubio, thanks so much for being with us. I know you've been watching all morning, getting a sense of just how bad the situation is, just how much damage was done. Your reaction as you see these pictures?
Well, it takes me back to my second year in college. I was 1992, and that was Hurricane Andrew came right through Florida, South Florida, where I lived. And some of these images, just from the drones that have been put up this morning, are reminiscent of some of that. And obviously, we'll learn more in the next few days. Right now, we're kind of relying on some of the media photos that are up, some of our friends and colleagues, local government on the ground, and the reports. Look, I don't want to be breaking news. I haven't seen it myself yet, but just from what I'm hearing from locals, and these are not people prone to hyperbole. Panama City's catastrophic damage. Someone told me, quote, Mexico Beach is gone, and it's this is going to take a lot of money and a lot of time to sort of rebuild, and obviously the federal government's going to have to be a big part of it. So I'm going to head to the headquarters of FEMA now to try to get more insight into sort of all the particulars, and then fly into Northwest Florida and then try to assess it myself, without, of course, not getting in the way, but. I think we're only beginning to learn. This sort of takes me back to that, when I'm living through Andrew myself, and sort of you woke up. I'll never forget the initial reports were it's not so bad, and then the further south one got, the more you realized, oh my goodness, this is a community-altering event.
It's a reasonable comparison. Hurricane Andrew is a reasonable comparison because this storm made landfall 2 miles per hour short, the wind speeds of a Category 5 storm, the most powerful storm ever to hit the Gulf Coast and one of the most powerful ever to hit the United States, period. And we've been talking about the damage from the storm surge, and that may be the case down in Mexico Beach. We just don't have a sense yet of how bad that is. You just told us you've been hearing Mexico Beach is gone, but the wind damage that we're seeing here in Panama City, and the amount of building structures that were just destroyed and the trees down everywhere, there is a wide scope of destruction here, Senator.
There is, and the rebuilding, of course, will be expensive because it'll be rebuilt to the new code that we have in Florida post-Andrew, which is costlier, safer, but costlier than some buildings that might have been grandfathered in. But the bigger point is that, one of the things that makes this part of the state so attractive is access to the water. Panama City Beach, more of a resort area, Mexico Beach, kind of a hidden gem, old Florida. That's tough to rebuild. It takes time to bring that back up, but it's not just a sort of property damage, it's economic damage. I mean, this has done economic damage. This is the lifeblood of the economies of these communities, and it's going to be a while before those industries are going to be producing revenue and jobs. So what happened after Andrew is people moved. I mean, they just left. A lot of them moved north to Broward County and never came back, and it's taken 20-some-odd years for South Day to recover. And I just hope that's not the case here. And so obviously we're concerned about it. But people are going to need to understand, I mean, this is not one of these things that we're going to scoop up and pick up and turn this around in 48 hours. I mean, this is a multi-year recovery effort. We got to rebuild the electric grid. This is not restoring power. From what I'm hearing this morning from Panama City, they have to rebuild the electric grid based on some of the damage that's been described to me.
Again, it does look bad here. We are only beginning to be able to assess it. Senator, we were speaking to people in the run-up to this storm. It did seem like a lot of people decided to stay, even though there were the warnings. Yes, it accelerated quickly, and some people felt it came out of nowhere over the last 5 days, but they were given 3 days' notice. Are you concerned that people are becoming jaded, almost numb to the calls to evacuate?
I don't think so. I think what happens often, especially in the Florida Keys, is a good example. You've got folks that have been there for a long time, generations in particular. Apalachicola is an example. You've got families that have been there for 3 or 4 generations. They've lived through multiple storms, and so their view of it is, I've lived through storms before. I can live through this one. And then there's another factor which we need to take into account. Okay, there are some people that just can't. They don't have a car, or they're not in physical condition to evacuate, or they've got pets that they're not going to leave behind. I mean, there are people that they're not leaving because they're stubborn. They cannot leave, and I'm fearful about that part too. And that is a vulnerability that I think Irma exposed a little bit in some areas. And I hope that as the day goes on and search and rescue operations go on, we don't learn stories about people that didn't leave because they couldn't afford to, and as a result lost their lives. That's a vulnerability we have that really needs to be addressed, and we've tried working on that a little bit this year. It's one of the lessons of Irma, but obviously hopefully not a big factor in this one. We'll find out, but it's clearly something that needs to be addressed.
You know, Senator Rubio, you've lived through these storms, as you know yourself. We know you're on your way down here to take a look at the devastation firsthand. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. Appreciate it, Senator.
Thank you. Stay